This is Mentally Dope. Join us, Charmaine and Jasmine, two Black licensed therapists, as we build a bridge between mental health and Black culture. Come on, it's gonna be dope.
Hi guys. Why did you get like the look?
I wanted to say hello. I'm excited.
We're back here
Hey.
with another episode of Mentally Dope. So on today's episode, we're gonna discuss a snippet of what I felt like. Kendrick Lamar dropped an album, and I felt like that album was like a diary / like therapy session / like confessional hall,
Lots of
like
things.
all
Yeah,
of
everything.
things. Like he just like dropped it like everything. So we're only gonna pick like right now we're gonna go through one song on that. But if you have not listened to oh my gosh, what is the whole album called? The big Mr. Morales, Big Steppers. If you have not listened to the entire album, take time to actually listen to it. It is really, really deep, and he goes through a lot.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And we're probably only going to do a few songs. We're not going to do the whole album. So if you feel passionately about it and you want, for some reason, for us to do a different song or something like that, let us know.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how we going to know?
Yeah. Like we say, talk to us, we talk back. So the first one that we're choosing is Mother I Sober.
Is that what that is?
I thought it was an I in the middle.
I thought it was a line divided, but I don't know.
Oh, so like Mother / Sober.
Mother, yeah, sober. But I don't know. Because when I looked up the lyrics, all of them had an I. And I was like, but that doesn't even sound... That doesn't
Mother
make
I
sense.
Sober.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have no idea. Somebody let us know.
Yeah,
But
in the
I
comments,
thought it was just
is it Mother / Sober or is it Mother I Sober? I don't know. Either way, the word mother and sober is in there. So that's what we're
That's
going
what we're
with.
talking about today.
So talking about this song and this like how it starts, we hear about Kendrick giving like full backstory about, for one, that he was an only child from birth up until like age 7. Talking about like, you know, being, I guess, like, you know, kind of like spoiled, like getting everything that he wanted for like Christmas and birthdays and stuff like that. But we also talk about his mother having what appeared to be anxiety. She had talked about his mother asking him did his cousin touch him repeatedly.
Oh, yeah. Trigger warning, we talk about like sexual abuse and stuff like that in this as well. But that's one of the like big themes out of that is like parent coping.
Yes.
How his mom is coping. And well, we'll speak in generalizations. You know, art is not necessarily literal. So I don't know. We're not talking to you specifically, Kendrick.
Yeah.
But like that if a parent has trauma, how that trickles down into the family and how that affects the family.
Yeah, so we're talking about
in this
sexual
case,
abuse, we're talking about substance abuse, we're also talking about coping and addiction, and we go into an addiction that's not even a substance, and then we talk about generationally, like I guess that is also generationally trauma, but also generational coping, how that is passed down as well too. So like we were saying,
there's a lot there. It's
yeah,
deep.
that his mother, that he finds out later in life that his mother was abused, so it made her hyper aware, or trying to be aware, to make sure that nothing ever happened to him.
Right. And then there was a situation, we'll say in general, like, I don't know that this situation is literal, but in general, from what I gathered, right, there is some other person in the family who has either been accused of sexually abusing someone, or it's found out something has happened, and everybody is asking Kendrick and lots of other people, like, were you sexually abused? Did something else happen to you? And how, even though that didn't, at least is what is being said in the song, that nothing happened, it still was a traumatic experience to go through that, to be, to have that perspective that he had from his mom, to be asked that over and over, to not be believed when he told him the truth about he hadn't had that experience, all of those things. So it's deep layers.
Yeah. And I think that when I heard that, I was reminded of my own childhood, because I know that for me, being candid about my mother had went through something when she was younger and how it made her the exact same way with me. Anytime I went anywhere, anytime I was around, even if it was like family members, like I could be like around like aunts and uncles, and when I got back, she'd be like, "Did anybody touch you?
Right.
Are you okay? Like, do you know like what all the parts are?
Hypervigilant, yeah.
Like, can't nobody put their hands here? Like, it was like a constant thing that as a kid, I was like, Mama, chill out. Like,
Yeah, we're doing a lot.
Like, I'm good. But I understood it more as I got older that she was trying to protect me. And then also finding out what she had went through of like why she was so hyper aware of like, I never want my child to go through that. So I appreciated it more.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a kid, I was just like, should I be nervous?
Exactly.
Is someone going to hurt me?
It sets off an alarm almost in a way that like, oh, they're like, nobody's trustworthy. Like, I always need to be expecting this. So but of course, parents are well-meaning. They're trying to be vigilant. They're trying to protect their children, but it also can go the opposite way.
Yeah.
Because it can also be hard to have that over your head.
Thing that like a lot of parents don't understand, that's sometimes how generational anxiety is passed on. You have now created a fear in your child that was not a fear before. And yes, sometimes like we need those things, unfortunately. Like we need to know to like not cross the street when there's cars coming. Of course,
but caution is different from fear.
Yes. And then sometimes it does create a level of fear for things that we don't know whether or not we should have fear about these things, but because you have fear of them, now I have fear of them. Yeah.
So there's a lot there. We talked about generational trauma, that like if one person is going through trauma, especially a parent, they can pass down those same things.
But then we also talk about like generational coping with this, because we see that we're not 100% sure if his mother was handling this well. I mean, like we did see that she was very, very hyper, hyper aware, but not really sure how she was handling it. And then for him to say that when he found out, his uncle said, "I got revenge on the person by going and like beating the person up or whatever may have happened."
Get creative, whatever you think that means.
Whatever. But even for him to say that that's how they coped by going and getting revenge, but that didn't stop me from having trauma, which like let's look like pause that's not going to stop you from having trauma. Like I don't like if someone hurts you, going and hurting that person does not stop the hurt that you have for yourself.
Correct.
So he was saying that he still had these repeated images of seeing his mother like with her face black and blue after she had been attacked, and that coping mechanism that we use as a family did not actually help him or his mother, because clearly she was traumatized and now he was traumatized, but this is what we got. This and alcohol.
Well, I mean, in a lot of things. I mean, I think in the song he's saying, I was trying to find ways to cope with all of the stuff that I was feeling and going through.
Yeah.
And sometimes that was money. Sometimes that was like buying nice things. Sometimes that was my relationships. Sometimes that was alcohol. Sounds like it wasn't one particular thing. It was many different things.
Yeah. But it also sounds like that he was saying that he did not realize that his addictions could still be addictions if they weren't a substance.
Yes.
Which is, I think, we see a lot of people who don't.
It's a word.
Yes. A lot of people who think that substance or that the addictions are only like
drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, to drugs and alcohol or gambling. We'll even throw those in.
Whatever you can go to a treatment center for.
Yes. But the hard thing about that is that an addiction is to anything that we're using to cope, and anything that could even seem positive. But if you're using it without actually healing, it can be an addiction. It could also be negative. Your addiction can be exercising, which could be a great thing. But if you do it too much and you're not dealing with what's going on with you, guess what? You just created an addiction to cope with your issue without actually dealing with your issue. So he's saying that he was he knew he was talented. So he was chasing money and he was chasing success.
Yeah, it also could be busyness. It also could be work. It could be lots of different things that you do. Like whatever it is, the point of it is to numb you or disconnect you from your emotions versus actually allowing you to feel your emotions and move through it. Like that's the way that you would know if something is problematic in that way.
Yeah.
I'm not big on like labeling things addiction or not addiction necessarily, but that's a good kind of...
are we healthy coping or not healthy coping?
Yeah, helps you figure that out.
Yeah. And so because even he says he has like this conversation dialogue that he has with his wife. I'm not sure if it was his wife at the time, but with his wife, where she says, "Do you have an addiction?" in regards to him sleeping with other women, and he was just like, "No." And he was like, wait, I lied.
Yeah, and then he said he lied this time. That's what
Yeah.
he said. Which
Yeah.
might mean before he said no, and he really believed
100%.
no was the answer. And at this time he said no, and he was like, oh yeah, like I'm not in control anymore.
Yeah. Because he also said that those encounters made him feel like a superhero, which also sounds very, very addiction-like, because the thing that you're choosing after makes you feel happy. It makes you it gives you that high, that dopamine high. That
A higher sense of self too, like you feel good.
Yeah.
You're maybe even a different person.
And then to kind of say like,
Chasing that dopamine, you know.
yeah. And then to kind of be like, okay, wait, no, this is a problem. Also, when you're dealt with the reality of this situation, of coming home and realizing that you're hurting somebody else. So to come home and see your wife or your children or whatever and be like, oh, this is a problem.
And that there are consequences to your actions, right? And that, like, if you're doing something and you don't mean the consequences to be the consequences, but it's affecting people and things around you, right? That's also how you know you're doing something that's probably a problem for you.
Yeah,
That there's
100%.
unintended consequences, and that's still not stopping you from doing the thing that you don't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is also hard, because I feel like that he was trying to say at the beginning that he thought that he was doing what was right, because he was saying that he was doing it sober. Where other people in his family may have been drinking or using drugs to cope with situations, he was saying, I wasn't doing any of that. They actually even offered me the drugs, and I was like, no, I'm good. I'm going to do this sober. But then he didn't realize that he still wasn't doing it.
Which is ironic, right? Because one of the lyrics said, you've never felt guilt until you felt it sober. You've never felt pain. I don't think it says pain, but until you felt it sober, which...
Grief, I think it was.
Grief, yes. Until you felt it sober, which kind of indicates he wasn't sober during this time, which means he couldn't feel those things, or he was numbing it or blocking it or whatever. And none with substances.
Yeah.
Right? It's a state of being.
Yeah. But that's like the hard thing, because like you think about all of us and like so many times, and I know like when I get clients who come to me as sessions, like those difficult moments of having to deal with it, how uncomfortable that feels, and we don't want to do that. Which is why we retreat and we got to go find something else. Well, I don't want to do this, so I'm gonna go do something else. And then it's like for him to say, no, I just said it. That's uncomfortable.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's understandable to me why people don't do their own work sometimes, because it's hard.
It's very uncomfortable.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
You're choosing hard and uncomfortable over and over again instead of numb and I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. So in this song, we see that go through how he even mentions his grandmother and like feeling some of that as well, and then his mother, and then how his family coped with it, and then how he coped with it, and then the end of the song kind of takes to me like a beautiful turn, where I believe it's his wife is like having his son say to him, "Tell Daddy thank you for breaking generational issues and showing our son differently." Yeah.
Yeah, because that's, I mean, I guess what he's saying is like that's what it took. That was the process that it took. It had to, if it wasn't going to stop, well, if it was going to stop, it was going to have to stop with me. I had to do the work so that I didn't hand that over.
Yeah. And then to even say that there was a shift that says that now I'm teaching my kids something differently. Yeah.
Which is the thing that we always say, right? How do you teach somebody something you don't know how to do yourself?
100%.
Right? You have to do
Yes.
your own work so that you can then teach somebody else to do it. That's why we talk about us as therapists. We're so annoying about like, parents, do your own work, do all that stuff. But like, how do you support somebody doing work that you have not ever done?
Yeah, 100%. And how do you teach them? Because that is the hard part. I can tell you, show your emotions, talk about your feelings.
Right. But how do kids learn? By modeling,
Yes.
not by words.
That whole do as I say, not as I do thing is not an actual thing.
It doesn't work.
No. So shout out to Kendrick Lamar for at least this song, for being open, for being vulnerable about what was going on with him, about like his trauma, his mom's trauma, and then how he was actually working to show and produce different for his kids.
Yeah. And people can relate, right? Like everybody on some level is going to have to deal with this or has to deal with this or is currently dealing with this in some way, right? Like we all have to sort out sobriety in our own way. We all have to sort out addiction in our own way because that's not always alcohol and substances and things that are illegal, right? Most of the time it's quite the opposite.
Yeah,
And so
100%.
everybody, I feel like, can relate to this in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
On some level. And just being black people, the prevalence of sexual abuse in our community is, I don't even think the numbers could accurately reflect it because it's not talked about.
But I think that, and I also liked just like an extra thing too that he added in this song was he made reference to slavery and how like all of those past things that we had to deal with as a culture and as a society and how those like, and he was just like saying like, you know, be aware of that before you judge someone. Be aware of that before you judge someone and be like, hey, they, like, you know, they're acting like this, instead of just be like what have they been through?
And he also said it's common. Like maybe the sexual abuse didn't happen to him, but it happened to a lot of people that he knew. He said men specifically, which is, there's a whole nother video that we could talk about. But like it's happening in our community. He drew a really good line between slavery, which can we just have like a rolling thing on the bottom? I feel like through all our videos it needs to be like slavery is the reason. This connects to slavery. It all goes back
100%.
to slavery. Every part of being black in America. But anyway, I ain't gonna get on my soapbox today, but that it's all today. But it all connects, always. And so we're dealing with stuff that was passed down to us because of slavery.
Yeah, 100%. So the question goes back to how you coping? How are you dealing with stuff? How are you identifying things that happened to you and your family? How have things that affected your parents affected you? Do you identify these? Are we breaking cycles? Are you teaching your kids different? Not judging.
And is there a shift that needs to happen? Right? Like you can't do this work unless you have a realization. And that's just sitting with yourself. That's just making space for it. So if you need to shift. Let's go. It's never too late to do this work.
Yep. So no judgment, just a little self-reflection. Figure out what you need to do to become mentally dope.
There you go. So people, tell us how you feel about this video. Please talk to us. We want to hear your voice, okay? Your textual voice. And yeah, we'll be here doing the same thing.
All right, guys.